Usually when we talk about a physical trait or a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of precision.
Oh, absolutely. It's very much like engineering.
Right. You look at a dog's physical build, the muscle structure, or I don't know, you look at an X-ray showing a jagged white line on a bone.
And you can just point to it and say, yep, there it is. That's exactly what we're dealing with.
Exactly. And that is deeply comforting for us as owners. I mean, we like things to be easily categorized.
Because it's binary. It's highly visible. The bone is broken or it's not.
But the moment you step into the world of canine psychology and specifically the emotional life and the mind of a boxer, that X-ray machine just completely shatters.
Yeah, it really does. You are no longer looking at clear black and white images.
No, we are looking at a behavioral landscape that is incredibly murky. So today, for this deep dive, we are taking on the ultimate, most common boxer owner's question.
Which is always, why on earth does my dog behave like this?
Yes. We are going to map out those invisible gears turning in their heads, and I can promise you, by the end of this deep dive, everything that feels frustrating about living with a boxer is going to make total sense.
It really will. Because, as our source material today shows, you cannot put a dog's emotional state on a light box.
Right.
We have this highly detailed stack of research today exploring the behavioral psychology and the everyday training realities of this specific breed.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to decode what's actually happening in their minds, we have to establish a fundamental difference first, right?
Yes, the difference between their physical traits and their remarkably complex emotional framework.
So to understand why boxers act the way they do, we first have to fundamentally redefine what it means for a dog to be smart versus what it means to be obedient.
And that is a huge sticking point for people.
Wait, I need to stop you there because smart and obedient are basically treated as the exact same thing in the dog world, aren't they?
That is the assumption. But with a boxer, conflating those two words is just a massive mistake.
How so? If a dog is smart, it listens to you.
Well, boxers are exceptionally intelligent. I mean, they process and learn new behaviors incredibly fast, often much faster than their owners even anticipate.
But they don't always listen.
Exactly. Because they were not bred for blind, independent obedience.
Ah, I see.
If you look at breeds that were designed to, say, guard a flock of sheep completely alone on a mountainside, they were bred to follow genetic instructions with very minimal emotional engagement from a human.
They just do the job. They don't need a pep talk from you to do it.
Right. But the boxer's history is the exact opposite of that. They were selectively bred for a working partnership.
A partnership.
They had to work in tandem with a handler, reading that handler's subtle emotional cues in real time. They literally had to stay emotionally connected to do their job safely.
Oh, wow. So when a boxer learns a command like sit or stay, they aren't just downloading a sterile piece of data into a hard drive.
No, they are learning that command entirely within the context of a relationship built on trust.
So if they're so smart and so tuned in, why do they constantly get called stubborn? I mean, I hear that all the time. Is it like a gifted kid acting out in a boring classroom?
What's fascinating here is that stubborn is probably the most misapplied word in canine psychology. And boxers really suffer from it more than almost any other breed.
Because it looks like defiance.
It does. But when you see what looks like defiance, you aren't seeing a dog crossing its arms and refusing to listen.
Right.
You're actually witnessing one of two entirely different psychological processes. First, it could be genuine overexcitement.
Okay, meaning what?
Meaning their emotional state is running so hot that it physically overrides their prefrontal cortex, the logical thinking part of their brain.
Oh, so they literally cannot process the word sit over the deafening sound of their own joy.
Precisely. Or there's the second option. The dog simply hasn't found sufficient motivation to prioritize your command over whatever else has their attention.
So it's not a spiteful act of rebellion.
Not at all. It's a calculation. It's either, I cognitively cannot process your request right now, or, well, the environment is offering me a much higher reward than you are.
Which perfectly explains that classic hair-pulling frustration. The owner whose boxer sits like an absolute champion in the quiet living room.
Right. They're perfect at home.
But the second they step foot in a busy dog park, the dog acts like they've never heard the word sit in their life.
And the owner immediately assumes, oh, my dog is being defiant. He's being stubborn.
Yeah, that's the immediate thought.
But what you're actually seeing there is a lack of generalization.
Generalization.
Yeah, dogs do not naturally generalize concepts well. A living room is quiet, it smells like home, it's highly predictable.
But a park is just an absolute explosion of sensory information.
Exactly. You have new smells, erratic movements from other dogs, loud noises. The cognitive load is immense for them.
So the dog hasn't forgotten the command. They just haven't learned how to execute that specific software program while their brain is processing a million other background tasks.
That's a great way to put it. They need systematic practice. You have to build up those distracting environments incrementally.
You can't just jump from the living room to the dog park.
No, you close that training gap through patience and structured exposure, not by assuming the dog is intentionally ignoring you.
So, okay, if their learning is completely tethered to how they feel about you in that moment,
Which it is.
then using those old school, heavy-handed alpha dominance training methods wouldn't just be ineffective, it seems like it would actively backfire.
Oh, it backfires spectacularly. There is a very old, very toxic misconception out there.
The idea that you have to show them who's boss.
Exactly. People think strong, athletic, muscular breeds like boxers need harsh physical discipline to fall into line.
But the sources say that's totally wrong.
Completely wrong. With a boxer, harsh corrections damage the absolute core mechanism they rely on to learn, which is trust.
Because if they are genetically hardwired to read your emotions, and your emotions are suddenly angry and unpredictable, you aren't establishing leadership.
No, you're just terrifying them. And fear is the enemy of cognition.
Wow, okay.
When a boxer becomes fearful, they don't become obedient. Fear floods their brain with cortisol.
And that shuts them down.
Cortisol actively suppresses the higher learning centers of the brain. It triggers the fight, flight, or freeze response.
I mean, I guess you physically cannot learn a complex new language when you're being chased by a bear.
Exactly. And a dog cannot process obedience training when they are stressed.
So how do you get through to them?
Effective training requires positive reinforcement. Use food, play, or praise to reward good behavior, and calmly withhold that reward or attention for bad behavior.
So what does this all mean? If I lose my temper and yell at a boxer to try and establish dominance, I'm essentially just unplugging the Wi-Fi router.
That is the perfect analogy. The signal between you two drops entirely.
And all I'm left with is static.
You've severed the connection. To keep that signal strong and clear, training sessions need to be short, frequent, and genuinely enjoyable.
Because you have to match their naturally excitable temperament.
Right. Neurologically, a dog will retain far more from 3 5-minute sessions of high-energy, fun engagement than they ever will from an hour of repetitive, boring drilling.
A drilling just drains their motivation.
Absolutely.
Well, that intense need for connection we just talked about, it doesn't just shut off when the training session ends.
Oh, no, it's a 247 reality.
It's the exact same engine fueling their trademark, overwhelming physical enthusiasm in day-to-day life. I mean, if you're listening to this, you've probably had an 80-pound muscle missile hit your chest at some point today.
They are just so much dog all the time.
Yeah.
But there is a very specific biological reason for that intensity.
Okay, what is it?
Boxers experience a prolonged puppyhood. The scientific term for it is neoteny.
Neoteny, meaning they stay juvenile longer.
Yes, the retention of juvenile behavioral and physical traits well into adulthood. They feel joy, and they express that joy with a full-body intensity that most other working breeds simply outgrow by their first birthday.
So they are eternally stuck as puppies.
In a lot of ways, yes.
But surely that wears off eventually, right? Most owners assume they just need to wait a couple of years and the dog will finally chill out.
Well, the manic energy moderates somewhat as they exit adolescence, which is usually around 2 to 3 years old.
But full calmness?
Being a total couch potato? No.
Yeah.
That is never the natural endpoint for a boxer. Even as seniors, they retain a remarkable zest for life.
So the goal for an owner is never to crush the dog's spirit to force them to be sedate.
Definitely not. The psychological goal is teaching impulse control. You want to manage the expression of the excitement.
Okay, so you aren't ripping the volume knob off the stereo. You're just teaching them how to turn it down a little.
Exactly.
Which brings us right back to the muscle missile, the jumping.
Jumping is the quintessential boxer behavior. But again, look at the underlying psychology here.
It's not them trying to assert dominance.
No, jumping is a direct physical expression of excitement and a desperate craving for facial connection.
Because they're a working partner, they want to see your face.
Yes. It is not an attempt to physically dominate you. It is not aggression. And it certainly isn't disrespect. They are literally just trying to bridge the physical gap to say hello to your face.
And we inadvertently make it infinitely worse, don't we?
We really do.
Because what is human nature when a heavy dog launches at us? We put our hands out, we push them away, and we say, "Get down."
But to a boxer, any physical push is tactile feedback.
We think we are correcting them, but they think we are wrestling.
Exactly. We're actively rewarding the jump with the exact physical engagement they wanted.
So how do you actually fix it?
To fix it, you have to completely remove the reward. If the dog jumps, you instantly turn your back, cross your arms, and withhold all attention and eye
I
contact.
totally ignore them.
You become a statue. You become the most boring object in the room. But the second, and I mean the exact millisecond, they put 4 paws on the floor, or better yet, sit.
Then what?
You turn back around and warmly reward them with the connection they were asking for.
So you are basically rewiring their understanding of cause and effect?
Right. Calm behavior unlocks the prize. Frantic behavior makes the prize disappear.
Well, it's just applied physics, really. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. I imagine this exact same psychological feedback loop applies to mouthing, too.
Oh, for sure.
Like adult boxers who still use their mouths heavily during play.
Adult melding is almost always a continuation of incomplete puppy bite inhibition. It's just an expressive habit that was never properly redirected.
So they need that exact same consistent boundary.
Yes. If the mouth applies too much pressure on human skin, all play stops instantly. You withdraw the engagement, and then you purposefully redirect that oral energy onto an appropriate toy.
Okay, but if they have this massive neotenic engine of energy designed specifically to connect with a human partner,
Yeah.
what happens to that engine when we lock it in a quiet house for 8 hours while we go to work? That energy doesn't just evaporate.
No, it doesn't. It has to go somewhere. And unfortunately, it usually manifests in the house through their voice or their teeth.
Oof. Let's look at vocalization first, then.
Well, boxers are not inherently yappy dogs. However, they do have a long, watchful, protective history.
Right.
If your boxer lets out a few deep, booming alert barks because a delivery driver is at the door or there's a strange noise outside at night, that is completely normal behavioral functioning.
They are doing their historical job. They're acting as the neighborhood watch.
Exactly. But problem barking is a different mechanism entirely.
Problem barking being what? Just nonstop noise?
Right. Incessant, repetitive vocalizing at nothing in particular. That is a symptom. It happens due to boredom, anxiety, or massive understimulation.
A tired boxer is a quiet boxer.
Always. If they are pacing and barking at the walls, they are explicitly telling you their mental or physical needs have not been met.
Wait, if we've selectively bred them over generations to be this emotionally tethered to their handler, aren't we just setting them up for massive psychological failure every single time we grab our keys to leave the house?
It's a great question, and it means it requires highly intentional teaching to prevent that failure.
So they can be left alone.
They can absolutely be left alone, but you cannot spend 3 months constantly coddling them as puppies and then suddenly disappear for a full workday.
You have to ease them into it.
You have to use systematic desensitization.
What does that actually look like in practice? Because people hear a big word like desensitization and think it requires a lab coat.
It's actually very simple. It's about breaking the emotional triggers associated with your departure.
Like grabbing your keys.
Yes. You put your shoes on, grab your keys, and then just go sit on the couch.
Oh,
You teach the dog that those sounds don't always mean isolation.
that's so smart.
Then you practice actually leaving for just 1 minute, then 5 minutes, then 20.
And I'm guessing you keep it pretty low key.
Crucially low-key. No big, emotional, drawn-out goodbyes when you leave, and no frantic greetings when you walk back in.
You are normalizing the coming and going so it doesn't trigger an emotional spike.
Exactly.
But what if the issue isn't barking? What if you come home and they have systematically dismantled your sofa or chewed through the baseboards?
The dreaded destruction.
Everyone instantly jumps to the conclusion that their dog has severe separation anxiety.
And most of the time, they are totally wrong.
Really?
Yes, true clinical separation anxiety is a severe panic disorder. But the vast majority of destructive behavior in boxers is simply the result of insufficient physical and mental exercise before the owner left.
So they're just bored?
The dog is incredibly bored. They have a massive reserve of working dog energy to burn, and tearing apart a couch cushion is a highly engaging puzzle to solve.
It's just something to do, so you interrupt that by providing a better puzzle.
Right, a long, exhausting walk before work and leaving them with a frozen puzzle toy to tire out their brain while you're gone.
You provide an appropriate outlet.
But there's a vital distinction we really need to make here.
Okay, what is it?
If your dog is showing signs of severe panic, if they are physically injuring themselves,
Hmm.
trying to escape a crate, breaking teeth on the bars, or vocalizing an absolute terror for hours on end that is not boredom,
Right.
that is a neurochemical panic response. You cannot solve clinical panic with a puzzle toy.
Because they're beyond the point of reasoning?
Exactly. That requires professional behavioral guidance and very often veterinary intervention.
So that covers the isolated boxer. But most of these dogs aren't living in quiet, single-person homes.
No, they are living in total chaos.
They're in multi-member households with toddlers, teenagers, and other pets. How does that raw, connection-craving energy scale in a busy family dynamic?
Well, let's start with kids, because boxers have a reputation for being legendary family dogs.
They do. They're famous for it.
And it stems from that historical ability to read a room and modulate their intensity. They have a natural gentleness and a genuine patience that they specifically reserve for children.
Which is amazing.
It is, but we cannot ignore the sheer physical reality of the animal. This is a heavy, muscular, boisterous dog.
Yeah, supervision is absolutely mandatory, not because the dog is aggressive, but simply due to physics.
Pure physics. A happy 80-pound boxer doing a full-body wiggle can easily knock a toddler down a flight of stairs by pure accident.
So we are really talking about a two-way education here.
How do you mean?
Well, we spend all this time training the dog to sit and stay, but if a 6-year-old kid runs screaming past the dog, they are instantly triggering the boxer's hardwired chase instinct.
Oh, absolutely. Children have to be taught how to interact just as much as the dog does.
Like, don't run past them waving your arms.
Like, they need to learn to respect the dog's boundaries and recognize when the dog is resting and needs a break. The dog is a living, breathing partner, not a jungle gym.
And what about the furry roommates? Are they generally safe to mix with other dogs or cats?
Boxers are highly social with other dogs, provided they've been properly socialized from a young age. They thrive with a good rough-and-tumble playmate.
But cats?
Cats introduce a completely different behavioral mechanism.
Yeah.
Boxers have a hunting-adjacent history, meaning they possess a very high prey drive.
Ah, so it's a predator-prey dynamic. You have a dog whose brain lights up when things move fast, and a small animal whose main defense mechanism is to run away quickly.
Exactly. You can't just cross your fingers and throw them together in the living room.
I imagine that's a recipe for disaster.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, introducing a boxer to a cat must be painstakingly gradual and supervised.
How slow are we talking?
Very slow. The cat must always have a safe, high-up retreat that the dog physically cannot access. And the dog must be heavily rewarded for showing calm, focused behavior in the presence of the cat.
Because if you rush it, you force a lasting tension.
Yes. Once a dog rehearses the behavior of chasing the cat, that neurological pathway is established, and it is exceptionally difficult to undo.
Navigating all of these family dynamics, the kids, the cats, the visitors, I mean, this isn't just a 6-week puppy class.
No, it is the entire lifespan of the dog.
And the source material highlights that the rules of engagement change dramatically depending on the dog's age.
They really do.
What is the experience actually like for a first-time owner? Because I think a lot of people fall in love with that squishy face without knowing what they are actually signing up for.
Well, first-time owners can absolutely succeed, but they have to be prepared for the ultimate crucible, which is the adolescent phase.
The dreaded teenage years.
Yes. In a boxer, this phase is notoriously long. It usually stretches from 6 months all the way up to 2, sometimes 3 years of age.
Oh, 3 years.
Yeah. During this window, they have the physical body and strength of a mature, powerful adult dog, but the emotional maturity and impulse control of a toddler.
Oh, man. It's like they've downloaded a massive, powerful new operating system overnight, but they are still running it on a dial-up modem.
That is exactly what is happening in their brain.
The physical hardware is fully upgraded, but the processing speed for self-control is severely lagging.
And because of that, progress will feel like it is completely stalled. You will swear the dog has forgotten every single command you ever taught them.
That's gotta be so frustrating.
This is the period where owners feel the most overwhelmed. But the secret to surviving it is absolute, unwavering consistency.
You just have to push through the static.
You maintain the boundaries, you continue the positive reinforcement, and you simply wait for their brain to finish baking. If you stay consistent during this stalled progress phase, you will come out the other side with an incredible companion.
And once they cross that threshold into adulthood and eventually into their senior years, We aren't just doing training for obedience anymore, are we?
No, at that point, we're doing it for cognitive preservation.
Which is so interesting.
Lifelong mental engagement is non-negotiable for older boxers.
Mm-hmm.
Teaching a senior dog new tricks, engaging them in scent games, giving them complex puzzle toys, it actively supports their cognitive health.
Kind of like a human doing Sudoku.
Exactly like that. It stimulates neural pathways and helps stave off cognitive decline.
But the sources also point out a massive overlap between health and behavior in those later years.
Yes, a very critical overlap.
If you have a previously well-behaved, stable adult boxer who suddenly starts showing major behavioral changes, maybe they're highly irritable or they seem confused, their sleep is disrupted, or they suddenly start having accidents in the house.
Do not assume they are just acting out.
Right. What's usually happening there?
Sudden behavioral regression in an adult or senior dog is almost always the very first sign of physical discomfort, chronic pain, or cognitive dysfunction.
Before they ever show a physical limp.
Long before they cry out in pain, the behavior will change.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We started this deep dive by saying training is all about building a relationship. And now we see that those behavioral muddy waters we talked about at the very beginning, they actually become our new X-ray machine.
That's a profound way to look at it. The behavior itself is showing us the invisible physical pain.
Right. It's a diagnostic window.
And attentive owners who truly know their dog's behavioral baselines are always the first to catch complex medical issues, simply because they noticed the dog stopped wanting to play tug or started pacing at night.
Which really brings this entire conversation full circle. We've spent this time completely decoding the boxer mind, and if there is one core takeaway we can synthesize from all of this research, it's this. A boxer doesn't just learn commands, it learns relationships.
Absolutely. That historical blueprint, the working partner moving side by side with the human roles, it hasn't vanished just because they live in the suburbs now.
It's just been redirected into family life.
Yes, they still require that constant emotional feedback loop. Deep connection, unwavering consistency, and mutual trust are the ultimate keys to living with this breed.
It's an incredible partnership if you're willing to put in the work and understand the psychology behind the energy.
It really is.
And of course, understanding the mind is only half the battle. The next step in fully supporting your boxer is protecting the vessel that houses that mind. So in our next exploration, we'll be looking into adult preventative care to ensure their physical health can actually keep up with that vibrant spirit across their entire lifespan.
It is the absolutely necessary companion piece to everything we've decoded today.
But before we go, I want to leave you with a final lingering question to ponder. We've established today that a boxer is deeply sensitive to your emotions, your consistency, and your communication style. If a boxer's behavior is ultimately just a mirror reflecting the strength, the clarity, and the trust of their human partnership, what does your dog's current behavior say about your own communication skills?
Oh, that's a good question.
Could mastering the art of engaging with a boxer, learning how to be calm, clear, and utterly reliable actually be a masterclass in how we build empathy, patience, and trust with the humans in our own lives? It is definitely something to think about next time you grab the leash.
Absolutely.
Please remember, this deep dive is for educational purposes only. If you ever have concerns about your dog's health or notice any sudden behavioral changes, always consult your veterinarian. Thank you so much for exploring with us, and we'll see you next time.